In here? Got me on? Yeah. It's time for us to begin. Let me update you a little on Flo. She fell yesterday evening out on the back porch, and the EMT, when they got there, immediately said, well, she's broken her hip. So got her to the hospital. Carol has been up there this morning. You know how it is, waiting to hear from a doctor about what they're going to do, and you get to wait and wait and wait and wait. So I literally don't know either prognosis or whether they're going to do surgery or not. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that. But we do appreciate your prayers. And she was in a lot of pain last night, just really miserable. So they've got her medication now to where that's not near what it was, which is good. We're going to be looking again this morning at the Garden of Eden, okay? And I want us to go back and kind of just really quickly recapture some important observations that we made about the Garden of Eden before we continue our discussion of what's going on there. Now, again, I want you to keep in mind, I think this is very, very important. God has made this earth in Genesis 1 very, very good, right? I mean, that's His determination, His declaration. It's very good. Somewhere in the Mesopotamian area, because of the specific mention of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and those are in that Mesopotamian region. Somewhere in that Mesopotamian region, and I'm sure the topography of that is much different after the flood than it was before the flood. But it was in that region that God said, I am going to place a garden. Now, if everything is already very good, and then He goes and puts something inside that very good, I'm going to have to say that it's probably way past very good, and we're moving toward superlative, right? In what He's done and what He is building. I personally think it had to just be breathtaking. Okay? This garden is going to be, in a very real sense, God's earthly temple. This is where, when He is on earth, this is where He's going to dwell. Okay? Now, just quickly remember, this is a walled enclosure. A lot of people don't realize that, but when you think about it, when God places those guardians at the gate to the garden, automatically that implies what? That there was limited access to get into the garden. If there hadn't been limited access, there would have been no need or desire to put those guards, the cherubs, at the gate. Secondly, it is in this garden that God meets man. This is where man will walk with God in the garden in the cool of the day. And so later we'll have a physical tabernacle, and then we'll have a physical temple. But at this point in time, what we have is this beautiful garden. Now, some have asked me, did they have a house in the garden? Was there some kind of dwelling place inside of there? And my response would be, we're simply not told. You know, I don't know. Maybe they did and maybe they didn't. If the world is very, very good, and inside that garden's even better, it could be that things are so temperate, so beautiful, that there's no need to be protected from the elements, because a lot of the elements that we see today, they simply didn't have at that time. Thirdly, and I think this is very important, this garden is home to a number of spiritual beings. When God says, let us, as we've talked about, I think he is speaking to spiritual beings that are with him in the garden. Now, I think that helps to explain why we find Eve so easily led off by this snake. Because again, when I was a kid, I always puzzled, why would somebody not turn and run from something that looked like that? Or if she had never had an encounter with that, why would she so quickly be led to believe that snake? But if she's had conversations with that snake, if she's familiar with that snake, if that snake's been around, and not only that snake, but other creatures as well, then that would explain why, when they have the conversation that they do, that she listens to what he has to say and gives him credibility. Next, the Garden of Eden is the arena in which the critical battle over who man chooses to follow will be fought. I don't know why God chose to create, if you would, a kind of arena, but that's really what this amounts to, because this is where the battle between good and evil is going to be decided as far as mankind is concerned. And notice, after Adam and Eve sin, they're driven from the garden, as we talked about last week, but the garden with its trees remains. And I want to come back to that a little bit later. Now, let's spend some time just touching on the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and let's see if this thing works. Now, as we talked about, and I want to stress, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is not some gnarly, ugly, revolting-looking tree. The very opposite. It was beautiful. It had amazing fruit on it that really tasted good. And so God deliberately makes this tree attractive. And so quickly, why is it called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Because in the eating of the tree, in the eating of the fruit, a decision is made to reject God's will. And in the process of rejecting God's will, the only possible outcome of that is what? Evil. Can't be any other way. And so this is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Because if the wrong decision is made, then evil results, and now Adam and Eve know evil. Why did God set the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the middle of the garden? Again, we touched on this last week. Why does he make it so obvious, so clear, so available? I believe it's because he wants them to have to make an ongoing decision, just like we do. Every day when you get up, all day long, what are you doing? You're making decisions, aren't you? You're making spiritual, moral decisions. Am I going to do this or not? Am I going to glorify God in this, or am I going to turn my back on him and go with the flesh? I mean, we all wrestle with that all the time. Now, what if you boil that down to a single object and a single act? And that's really what you have in the garden, isn't it? You have a single object and a single act. But this is God testing man. And as we said, one of the ways in which I believe that we are created in the image of God, perhaps one of the most significant ways, is that we have the ability to make choices morally. We can choose evil or we can choose good. I was watching a really interesting special last night on dogs. And there are people who study how dogs think. And as they were studying how dogs think, it was really interesting to listen to the cognitive process they're finding that goes on in a dog versus a person. And one of the interesting things they're finding, and we all know this anyway, is that dogs are incredibly manipulative when it comes to human beings. That they have developed with their eyes muscles that a wolf doesn't have. And with those eyes, they can just give you that look. And on top of that, they have a white around their pupil that most animals don't have. And as human beings, we very much look at another person's face, and one of the things we look at is their eyes, and one of the things we look at is the white in their eyes. And dogs have that, and so there's a connection there. God sets that tree in the middle of the garden, and along with that, why did he make it so attractive? I believe because if it's not really a temptation, then what's the point? Again, put me out a plate of liver, it ain't going to be a problem. Forever. It will never be a problem. It will rot, it will desiccate, it will disappear, it will turn to dust, and I will never touch it. Now, make that a plate of Carol's chocolate chip cookies, and we're talking about a totally different situation when it comes to temptation. I want you to consider what the tree of knowledge of good and evil represents. First of all, it's a challenge to the faith of Adam and Eve, isn't it? Are you going to believe God or not? Secondly, it presents a concrete choice. Will you leave the tree alone or not? And thirdly, it symbolizes the challenge that is presented to human beings by law. We have kind of a hard time with law, don't we? And I think a lot of that goes back to, I really want to be God, in the sense that I want to set my own rules and live by what I like to do, what I feel comfortable with. And I have a tendency not to like it when somebody tells me, no, you can't do that, if I want to do that. And so, in order for it to truly be a challenge to Adam and Eve, and really the whole issue of law, it's important that God have something concrete that can be pointed to and looked at, that can be touched and eaten, and there be dictates about can you eat this fruit or not. And again, I'm fascinated by the fact that with all the fruit that there is in the garden, and all these trees that are in the garden, you know, it's kind of, isn't it interesting? When you go on a diet, you know, there's all these diets, right? And so you go on a no sugar diet, you go on a no this diet or no that diet. The second that you go, all right, you know, for the next week, I'm not going to eat any bread. What is the most attractive thing in the world? Bread, right? Now, before it didn't make much difference. It was just bread. But all of a sudden, if you've just decided that for a week you're not going to eat bread, there's nothing on this earth more attractive than bread. I think it's the same way with this tree. It is attractive because it's a no-no. And we just really struggle with no-nos. Now, what role does the devil play in this whole situation here? It's interesting. Go back and read the account of them talking. It's just a few verses, not much. He draws Eve's attention to the tree. Now, I think that's one of Satan's primary actions. is he knows what tempts you. And so what he's going to do is work to draw your attention to that which tempts you. And so, if you struggle with alcohol, I believe he's going to do his dead level best to get you moving in a circle of some people who drink, or find some way to tap at you and work at you to see if he can break through and get you to do what you know you don't need to do and shouldn't do. That's exactly what the evil one is doing here, isn't it? I mean, think about it. Why do they advertise on TV? Why do they spend millions of dollars on TV advertising? Because otherwise there's a lot of junk you would never look at, right? You would never pay any attention to whatsoever. But they put this fabulous new hose on there that will shrink back and coil itself and never tear or plug up or mess up. And you and I both know ain't no such thing. At least I've never run across one. But I mean, they put that thing on there incessantly because what do they want you to think about? How many of you walk around thinking about hoses? You don't think about hoses. But they're going to put hoses on there until you think about them and go buy one or two.
But in the end, that's the best looking yard, that's the best looking backyard, best looking patio you have ever seen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As Daryl said, whatever this hose is associated with is beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah. And so he's doing his dead level best to draw Eve's attention to the tree. Okay, he's got that done. Secondly, he questions God's motives. Come on. Whoops. He questions God's motives for forbidding eating from the tree. Now, in reality, what he's doing is, in rhetoric terms, he is poisoning the well, right? I mean, this is the idea that if you can't meet the individual's argument, if the individual's argument is going to win the day, then what you do is poison the well. You attack the speaker. You attack his character, you attack his knowledge, you attack his credentials. You spend all your time attacking him or her because you know you can't refute what they're arguing. And so you poison the well. What exactly is Satan doing here? Well, let me tell you, there's a reason why God doesn't want you to eat from that tree. And let me clue you in, because you'll be like him. Now, what's that saying? It's blaspheming God, isn't it? I mean, it really is. He is blaspheming God. He's saying God's so little that he's threatened by anyone who could be like him. And so that's why he didn't want you to eat from that tree, because then you'll know good and evil like he does. Then he flatly denies, all of a sudden. Then he flatly denies the consequences of eating the fruit. In the day you eat thereof, what? You will not surely die. Huh? Half-truth? Yeah, which is no truth at all. But that's how he operates. But, what's he doing here? He's saying again, God is so little that he doesn't want you to be like him. He's threatened by that. And on top of that, he's lying to you. He's telling you that if you eat of that fruit, you won't die. And I'm telling you, you will die. And I'm telling you, no, you won't. Now, look at how they've sold. No, Jerry? Yeah, yeah. And we'll talk about that because that's an important point. Was she deceived? Why does God say she was deceived and lets her off as far as responsibility goes and hangs it on Adam and his responsibility? But again, he's looking her, I assume he's got eyes. He's looking her right in the eyes. And he said, you won't die. You won't die. He's lying to you about that. You won't die. Now again, look at how they're selling marijuana. That has just aggravated me now for years. How they lie and lie and lie about marijuana. You go back and you look at the studies that were done and the tests that were done back in the 80s, 1980s, and I'm old enough to remember those. And you will see that there were all kinds of studies that came out at that time indicative of the dangers associated with the use of THC, of marijuana. And the drug at that time was nothing like it is today as far as the concentration of the drug goes. It is way, 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 way stronger today than it was then. But even then, they were noticing a tremendous diminution in one's cognitive ability. The fact that if you were 15 or 16 and you started using that drug, 10 years later, emotionally you were still 15 or 16. That it seemed to stunt you emotionally. That it would get into the body, get in the fat, and stay there for a long time. Continue to have an effect. That it was addictive, and on and on and on. Anyway, they came along now, and what have they said? Oh, it's not going to hurt you. It's harmless. And they go berserk over cigarettes and push marijuana. And I just scratch my head. But that's what he's doing. He is flatly denying the consequences of eating the fruit. You'll be the exception, right? I mean, isn't that what tempts us? Yeah, I know I'm not supposed to drive 80 into 65, but I'm the exception until you see those lights in your rearview mirror and find out, no, you're not. He deceives Eve. Now, is it fair for God to let Eve off because she was deceived and hammer Adam because he wasn't?
Deception is thinking you're right. But you're wrong.
It's being made to think you're right, yes.
If you're driving 80, you know you're wrong.
Right,
Deception is wrong.
right.
Eve was deceived. She thought he was telling the truth because she'd never been lied to before.
Exactly.
Adam had already been told. Now, it says that God said that. It didn't say God said it to Eve. God told Adam not to eat of the fruit. Did Adam educate his wife? Have you ever tried to educate your wife?
Well, you just want to drop a bomb in here, don't you?
She was right, but she was wrong.
Yeah.
It's that one thing she's trying to figure out.
Excuse me.
But Adam was not deceived. Adam knew it was wrong all the way along. We can excuse somebody for being deceived. We can't excuse somebody for making a blatant.
Let me refresh your memory. He said to the woman, did God actually say, you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? Did he really say that? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die.
So she knew.
Now, according to her, think about it, you didn't have to consume it. If you even touched it, you would die. And so she's doing what we have a tendency to do, and that is if we think something threatening, we want to put a bigger fence around it, don't we? Because that way we'll never have a problem if we just put a big enough fence around it. That's exactly what they've done. But the serpent said to the woman, "You will not surely die. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Now, as was pointed out earlier by Lewis, can you take truth and twist it around and it ends up a lie? Even though it's got this smattering icing of truth on it, underneath it's a lie. That's exactly what he's doing here. Is it true you'll be like God, knowing good and evil? Yeah, it's true. That's true. But see, he's previously undercut the implications of that by saying, well, that's because God's so little that he feels threatened if you become like him. So, when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, now how did she know it was good for food? She hadn't tasted it. But if you get to looking at something and focusing on it and thinking about it, doesn't that make a difference? And that it was a delight to the eyes. And that the tree was desired to make one wise. Now, is this a winner or not? Looks good, tastes good, and it'll make you wise. That's an easy sell, isn't it? She took of it and ate, and she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Now that, to me, is where you draw the line. Okay? She was lied to. She was deceived. She listened to a liar lie to her, who's a really good liar. He manipulated her, manipulated the facts, convinced her that it would be to her benefit to do this, and she does it. Then he turns around, and we have no doubt in our minds at all that he knows better. And she hands him the fruit, and what should he have done?
Shouldn't have took it out of her hand.
He never should have taken it from her. He should have stopped her ahead of time, right? I mean, as a husband, that's what he should have done, and he didn't. Now, there's been some discussion. Is he in the proximity? Is he listening onto the discussion? Has he heard what the snake says to the woman? Because when she eats, right, she eats and hands it to him, and he eats. Was he there all along? Don't know, but it's possible that he was. But to me, where God draws a line is he takes that fruit from the woman and he knows better. She ain't lying to him. She ain't misrepresenting anything. She just saying, sweetheart, this is delicious. Here you go. And he eats. And so he takes the blame, not her.
Could this have been like Mikey likes it? Could this be like you getting your little brother to try it?
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
He's going to try it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's what it was, but it might have been.
Well, the serpent is proof of other created creatures' ability to choose, of a rebellion which has occurred in God's heavenly family. Okay? We don't know until this point that there are those who have turned against Yahweh, right? But all it takes is this story to let you know that something bad has gone on among the beings created by God, that there is at least one who has rebelled against him, And this one blasphemes him, belittles him, clearly hates him, and is determined to cause those that he's created to be alienated from him. Okay? And so, whoever this is at this point is obviously hugely dangerous. Okay? Hugely dangerous. Now, here we go with what brought up a while ago. Who's held responsible for eating the forbidden fruit? Do both have to face the consequences?
Yes.
They absolutely both do. Okay? She does not get off from facing consequences. She faces consequences, he faces consequences. For Adam was formed first, then Eve, and Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. That's 1 Timothy 2, passage we referred to earlier. Romans 5, 12 through 17 makes it clear that Adam is held as responsible for sin entering into the world. By the way, I really think that one of the biggest, I don't know whether to call it punishment or consequence of the woman eating is that she now becomes dependent upon the man. Because who bears the children? The woman does. Which means for 9 months, particularly as she gets into the period, gestation period, is she going to be able to work like she could otherwise? Is she going to be able to take care of herself, or is she going to become more and more dependent on her husband, on a man? And when that baby's little, now that I'm being reminded by my granddaughter of how it wears you out to take care of an infant, somebody has to stay home and somebody has to take care of that baby. And that somebody who stays home and takes care of that baby then becomes totally dependent on somebody else to make sure that they have shelter and food and clothing and so on, right? And so she has made herself incredibly vulnerable by the choice that she has made, or God has made her incredibly vulnerable. So as he talks about pain in childbirth, I don't think he's just talking about the physical pain of childbirth. I think he's talking about motherhood, period, and the difficulties and challenges that are associated with motherhood, particularly when you get some jerk, and we have way too many of them, who won't assume responsibility. Huh? No, I'm talking about jerk as a husband. Thank you for clarifying. Jerk is a husband who is not taking care of that woman like he should and providing for her and forcing her to face the consequences of carrying a child and bearing a child without providing for her, which is his responsibility in this whole thing. Was that one or two? One. Okay. Well, I've only got one full page of notes to go. No problem. And I got to talking. Here we go. What are the consequences? Real quickly. You know, one of the things about Scripture is, man, God lets you know, doesn't he? He didn't gloss it up. He didn't cover it over. He doesn't paint it nicely. And then in particular, I think, is true of this sin. What are the consequences of what they do? Death, right? As promised. Now, does God immediately show grace? Yes, he does. Because he doesn't kill them on the spot. But are they dead in sin? Are they dead? They sure are. Are they cut off from the tree of life? Yeah. Are they dead? They're dead. because the thing that would keep them from dying has been taken away from them. By the way, there's some discussion, I don't think we have time to go into it, where they created immortal. Or were they created mortal and only kept alive and continuing to live as long as they had access to the tree of life? And I would argue that they were not created immortal, that they were created mortal, and they would live as long as they had access to the tree of life.
Aren't we all immortal, whether we're saved or not?
Well, yes, in the sense of ongoing existence.
They were cut off from God. God could reach them, but they could not reach God. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
That's what it costs them.
yeah, they now face physical death where before they didn't. And now they face the physical consequence of dying, which, by the way, turns out to be a gift from God, doesn't it? You live forever in sin, really? I mean, how many people want to continue to live in the mess that we see? Frankly, this is my pass whenever the time comes, and I'm not complaining about it one little bit, When God says it's time, I'm ready. New headquarters, new everything, going to be okay. There's pain in childbirth. Whoops. Real quickly. There's pain in childbirth. There is sweat. Labor. There's shame. Biggie. How much time do we spend ashamed? Well, if you're sensitive to your sin, are you ashamed of it? Yeah. And isn't it funny? No, it's not funny. Isn't it, I don't even know the word, thought-provoking? I'm still ashamed of stuff I did when I was 6 years old. Do you ever get over that? Do you ever get over that shame? Even what you did at 6 was, stupid and childish and all that. I'm still going, Rouse, really? You did that? I'm not going to tell you what I did, but I'm just saying. I was a shoplifter, okay? I stole a piece of caramel candy. And my daddy caught me on the way out of the store. It made me take it to the manager, who said he was going to call the cops. And this 6-year-old was petrified because I thought I was going to go to jail. Did that break me of stealing caramels and anything else? Boy, it absolutely did. It absolutely did. Blaming. Notice how they get into the blame game. The woman you gave me, right? Well, right off, Adam is blaming Eve.
The woman you gave me.
That's right, the woman you gave me. Not my fault. I'd have been okay if you had given me her. And of course, there is separation and alienation from God, which is awful. I think that's one of the things we struggle most with in life, is that sense of alienation, being cut off.
I have a question. Did Adam and Eve have opportunity for forgiveness in heaven, or did they die as sinners?
I think they had opportunity for forgiveness. I do. Like anybody. And it all depended on faith. Can you do something really stupid and turn around and repent of that and live a faithful life after that? And is God going to forgive you as long as you're walking in faith? Yeah. See, what about Adam? I don't know. And Eve, But I do know. Huh? Yeah.
I'm wondering when God said, who told you you were naked? Was that him giving Adam the chance to repent? Because
Oh, I think yes, I do. I think that was God giving Adam the chance to confess that he messed up and he blew it. He didn't do it. Thank you. God bless. We got food out here for everybody. Please go buy the booze and look at what the deacons are doing.